Hi, this is Charles Hoskinson, broadcasting live from warm, sunny Colorado. Always warm, always sunny, sometimes Colorado. Today is April 23rd, 2024. Still got Blackhawk hair. Can't get all that stuff down. Pretty windy up there. We have to fix the window. Want to make a video now that I'm back in the saddle. I was down in Dallas at Book.io and also visiting my labs and taking a look at the lovely glowing plants, all the other cool stuff. And I wanted to make a video talk a little bit about Pragma. It's a new MBO, new project, and it's just getting started. It's just in its infancy. So for those of you who don't know, a consortium of ventures got together, according to this tweet from the Cardano Foundation, saying, announcing Pragma, we're proud to be part of this members-based open source association alongside Blink Labs, DC Spark, Sunday Swap, TX Pipe Tools. Pragma will focus on blockchain software and fostering open source ecosystem for Cardano. And there's a nice little link here to the announcement. And then the association's website is here. So it's a members-based not-for-profit open source association for blockchain software projects. And the big thing is Aiken, which many of you know and love, which will be contributing to. IO is going to be contributing 2 full-time engineers to work on the Aiken open source project at the direction of the leadership there. And Amaru is the alternative Rust node client for the Cardano blockchain. Okay, so this is a client that has to agree with the Haskell client. And there's been a lot of questions about how are these two going to get along. Well, currently the single source of truth for what is Cardano is not the Haskell code. So normally if you come from like Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of these ecosystems, typically there's a dominant client and the code is the specification. This is not the case for Cardano. Cardano actually uses formal specifications, which are ambiguity free. And there's legacy specs and where we're going, which are the future specs. So the legacy specs, like the formal specification here, if you click on it, you can see that these are written in Agda. And there's some legacy stuff in LaTeX. So we have partial specifications, meaning that everything is specified, but some is specified in LaTeX, which is a formatting language for mathematics. So there's a very rigorous mathematical definition for all things. And then some is actually specified in Agda. In fact, this has never been done before. 209 papers that we wrote, we actually wrote a paper which just got accepted at FMBC. And this showcases how to specify a blockchain in Agda. So this is kind of the single source of truth for the design of Cardano. So basically, ambiguity free, this sets how everything should work. So the Haskell node is basically going to have to be subservient to this, meaning it has to follow the specification. And for Pragma to work with the Cardano ecosystem, Pragma has to do the same. So there's all these repos are actually at the Intersect MBO. And many of the people at Pragma are also members of Intersect, and they have a Git access, and they actually do all kinds of cool stuff here. But you can see all the different repositories. There are 39 of them at Intersect. So this is where Cardano actually lives. It no longer lives at the input-output repos. So things like the Cardano node, the Ouroboros consensus, the API, the CLI, Plutus, LSM is something we're looking for UTXO HD, the Gov tool, which is what you guys are using for SanchoNet, it's the ledger, the formal specifications, TX template, and it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Even Nami is currently sitting over at Intersect. Go figure. So all of these different things are basically there. And one of the things that has to be figured out is basically the development cadence and workflow for those who are developing alternative clients and how that's going to work with the formal specification. So one of the goals is to have the end-to-end specification done in Agda sometime next year. And it's just a question of what is the definition of success there, and also what bells and whistles do we expect from that, including code extraction, certification, these types of things. And so that's a project-to-project conversation, and it's a very significant roadmap item that was always a nice to have, but now that there's actual competing clients, what that translates to is that it's a must-have, because the clients can no longer get out of sync with each other. And there's some baseline stuff, like, for example, how will the hard fork combinator work with Amaru? And what is that going to look like? And exactly who's the intended audience and these types of things. So the good news is that both sides of the aisle basically have transitivity. There's developers on both sides, and we all talk to each other. And this is a very healthy thing for the Cardano ecosystem, because if you only have a mono team that looks at these specifications, you tend to only go in one direction. But now that there's multiple teams, what can end up happening is that there's a lot of questioning of how do we simplify things, how do we improve things, and actually they help you catch mistakes in the specification work. So as ecosystems grow, competition occurs, and that's a very healthy thing for your design of the system, as well as operational resilience. Now, I've seen some people discuss, well, this means that features will come faster to Cardano. What are the challenges of a multi-client environment, whether it be Harmonic Labs building the TypeScript client, or it be what Pragma is doing with Rust, or what's happening with Haskell, is that it does not speed up development. In fact, it's quite the opposite, because you're only as slow and only as fast as your slowest client. And so if, let's say, Rust is killing it, but Haskell falls behind, or Haskell's killing it, Rust falls behind, you have to wait for everybody to catch up, and then you all fork together. So this is one of the reasons why it took 7 years for Ethereum to get to their hard fork that created proof of stake. So this does not speed up feature delivery to the ecosystem. However, it does provide a lot more security, operational resilience, different philosophies, alternative tooling, and in many cases, it allows differentiation for certain clients to be used by certain customer segments, and allows specialization to make it much better for them. So certain pockets of sub-features that do not require software hard fork, actually those may be delivered significantly faster to market, which is, I'd imagine, the point. Because if you look at the tool builders behind Pragma, there are a lot of people who have been delivering alternative tool sets that, like TXPipe, for example, which are quite useful to the ecosystem as a whole. Now, it's not clear to me how they intend on funding Pragma. Likely looks like the CF is providing some funding for it, but nothing was disclosed to us. So if I had to hazard a guess, it's likely they're going to build some stuff, but at some point probably have a discussion with the Cardano ecosystem about use of the treasury. One of the purposes of Intersect is to be the interface to discuss the annual budget process for Cardano. And we've had numerous conversations with different stakeholders, including the CF, about when and how to start that process. It has to, by design, start after the Voltaire hard fork, the Chang hard fork, because that's when the treasury function turns on. But the idea would be that all the special interest groups, whether they be Pragma or the NFT community, or it be people seeking like USDC support or whatever it is, basically put requests in. It goes to some form of consolidated budget process. A large group of people kind of discuss it. That's hybridized with some key DREPs, almost like a Ways and Means committee that we see with the US Congress. And then it works its way through and eventually gets to a consolidated budget. If you look at the current inflow and outflow of the Cardano treasury, taking Catalyst out of the equation, Cardano can comfortably expend at least $100 million at its current level without too much decay in the treasury. I think that gives you like a 20 or 25-year lifespan, depending upon price of ADA. So we can comfortably, as an ecosystem, manage a low 9-figure budget, which would be probably well more than enough to allow client diversity, continuity of the existing progress and roadmap that we have, as well as some open conversations about funding of new vehicles. Intersect was built really for 3 purposes. One was basically being a hub to discuss around governance excellence, so all the different things and bringing all the different people together, so whether it be a civics committee or the constitutional workflows or governance tooling or providing services to constitutional committee members and DREPs alike. So that was one of the purposes of it. The second was to be the custodian of the core project roadmap, the product roadmap. So having discussions about the specifications, high-level roadmap items, the translation of SIPs into research into SIPs, so translational research, and these types of things. And it was also built to help manage the budget function, because that's so complicated. There's a lot of moving pieces to it, and not supersede or replace things like Catalyst, but basically be a kind of above that process and provide funding down. Well, once that's in place, it's very easy to imagine that people start creating members-based organizations for different purposes. So, for example, Pragma was created, and now it's an MBO for a constellation of open source projects, which are very cool and essential for the ecosystem. And it'd be really interesting to see how that grows. Well, I'd love to see that participate in the budget process and basically get annual funding. But I'd also like to see the same happen for alternative clients as well. And then we have to have a strategic conversation of how many clients make sense. It kind of does make sense to have a high assurance, rigorous client in Haskell, one in Rust, and one in TypeScript, because what that effectively does is covers every modality and every user group, whether it be in the browser, in the enterprise setting, or is something for basically the standard setting in the ecosystem. So that is kind of where we're at. But then it also opens a conversation about marketing and growth hacking, the hackathons, the pipeline of projects. So one of the things we've been doing is experimenting with going and talking to some of the larger projects in Cardano and getting to know where their problems sit and whether they be liquidity problems like listing or venture capital problems or technology problems. And it would be really cool to develop a skunk works in Cardano for white glove treatment of larger projects. So basically, they have a dedicated group of people to help them in their journey of building on Cardano. It wasn't possible to do this without a decentralized government, because you'd need a decentralized government to create an institution who's accountable for that and create rules of the road for how to engage. Otherwise, it would be impossible because it would just be favoritism. Whoever's closest to the core entities would gain an undue advantage, and there would be no democratic oversight of this process. But that's an example of something that could be opened up and something that could be funded in the budget, and many projects would benefit tremendously from this, whether they just need strategic assistance, technical help, market development, or just basically people to talk to about where they want to go, what they want to do, or people to merge with. There's also been a lot of conversation about our marketing footprint as a community and an ecosystem. It would be nice to see institutions form for that. We see a lot of nascent efforts forming up. Like, for example, Cardano Girls is forming up, and Rick McCracken is doing videos, and you have Cardano Whale doing a lot of really cool and interesting things. And there's 1,000 flowers that are blooming. And it would be really cool to see if all those people who are interested in these things could form together and actually get an annualized marketing budget and be able to deploy that for growth hacking of Cardano. Yet another thing that decentralized governance brings to the table, because now you have a fair and balanced way of doing that, and doing it with checks and balances that ensure that nothing goes wrong, or when things do, there's recourse for it. So it's a very exciting time. And as I've repeatedly said, governance is the single biggest advancement for the entire industry, and it's the biggest differentiator between us and everyone else. Things like scalability, they're very commoditized. And when we look at things like Ouroboros Laos, for example, which really push us forward, the publication of that paper is imminent. And what's it's going to bring is like 75% of solving the blockchain trilemma. There's still some stuff to go, but it's a mammoth step forward, and it's something that we can begin rapid prototyping with. You may notice that Genesis is coming soon. And you may notice that was built in less than a year for the protocol. So Ouroboros Paris is next on the menu. There's a rapid prototyping team that's working on it. The publication of that paper is imminent, and actually we should have all that prototyping done by the end of the third quarter of this year, and then it can be sent off for a fixed cost contract through an RFP process. And what's nice about that is if they have delays, it's on their peril and on their dime. So there's strong incentives to get things done within an envelope of cost and an envelope of time for these well-defined buckets of protocols. So in terms of procurement as an ecosystem, and in terms of coordination, collaboration as an ecosystem, we're getting much, much better. In fact, we're starting as an ecosystem to get to a point where we're as good as some Fortune 500 companies that move very quickly on massive mega scale projects. And I'd argue we're actually the best in the entire cryptocurrency industry. And we already have all those vendors around, and we now know as an ecosystem how to work on them, with them, and we have a whole process that's brewing through Intersect for that. So governance is the big differentiator, because it's what allows us to engage in areas that we feel are going to allow competitive excellence, allow us to grow and market, and it's also going to allow us to get the resources in the hands of people who are actually building. And just look at how incredibly decentralized the ecosystem is. The entire Pragma MBO was constructed And I wasn't even aware of it until just, I think, a few weeks before they made the announcement. That's how decentralized Cardano is now. Even the core entities basically don't know certain things, and there are parallel initiatives going on. So every day there's stuff happening, a lot of cool cross-chain stuff, a lot of cool collaborations, and we're all talking to each other now. Even in the Ethereum people are starting to get more comfortable with Cardano talk. There's still some friction and challenges with Bitcoin. Those are philosophical, and unfortunately that's universal to the industry. It's Bitcoin versus everyone else because of the language that they use and the approach that they take. But for the rest of the industry, Ethereum on down, actually I think 2025 is going to be the year of grand collaboration. There's so many areas where we can all get along and build amazing things, and there are a lot of real world assets to bring into the ecosystem, and a lot of tangible, practical problems to solve, whether they be in healthcare or they be in microfinance. And as I've mentioned repeatedly, I have a portfolio of 6 companies. All of them are trying to build something on Cardano. So this brings a lot of utility into the ecosystem because it's best in class to do that. So we really are going for number one, the largest ecosystem in the entire cryptocurrency space. And I think we have the right foundations for it. And I understand there's some friction and some challenges here. You know, when Coinbase has been replaced with when Circle, and everybody wants scalability, better, faster, cheaper now. But when you look at the widen the aperture and you look at the horizontal stuff, like near horizon and mid horizon, Hydra is advancing rapidly. Plutus V3 is going to bring all kinds of great capabilities for rollups. So there's already projects like, I think ZK Fold is one that's trying to exploit that. You have partner chains coming rapidly, and that's best in class. And there's some amazing technology that's being hybridized with what the Polkadot community has created, what we've created. And it's really a marriage made in heaven for those things. The R&D has never been more aggressive, 209 papers, and the translational research of taking the papers into SIPs and protocols is moving faster than it's ever moved before. You have competing clients now coming, which basically speeds up some of the backlog, in particular, for example, the formal specification work, which actually will improve the security of the systems and the testing of our systems, which means our software will continue to be best in class in terms of reliability. And the fact that the budget process is going to start the minute that the government fully turns on, and the entire community can talk about what are priorities and who are the special interest groups and the priorities that basically should be listened to, whether they be NFTs or DeFi. And of course, on our part, we'll continue reaching out to major projects. We're going to probably hold an Oracle Summit here in just a little bit. It was really elucidating talking to Book, because Book has a lot of scalability questions, because they do these huge NFT drops in the system and they bring a lot of stuff in. And plus, they're a cross-chain project. It was great talking to Mickey just recently about World Mobile going and becoming a partner chain and all their needs, and how we're going to accommodate and get those things done. So we'll kind of work our way through the book and get things done throughout the summer. But it's amazing. It's really amazing to see it all come together. And the final thing to mention is the Constitutional Convention. Still on target, still on schedule. We sent our first delegation down to Argentina. I want to give a special shout out to the LATAM community. They did an amazing job interfacing with our people at IO and treated them with the utmost hospitality. And you know what? It's a very safe, wonderful country. And it's just incredible to see just how passionate people are. And I cannot wait to have a convention. So I will go down personally, probably in July, and we'll send a few more delegations between now and then. And we're going to try to bring a few institutions in the country of Argentina, from academic and government, into the process as well, to help smooth out some of the friction and also add their own flair to it. But it's going to be fun to watch all those delegates come from across the world and get to Argentina and help sculpt the final form of the Constitution. The interim Constitution is still under heavy construction, finishing up the guardrails, and it's going to launch in tandem with SIP 1694 in the Chang hard fork. That Constitution has 131 guardrails written in Plutus, and it's a good showcase of the new Plutus High Assurance work stream that we have. So it's a smart contract written with all these advanced tools using formal methods to verify it's right. But this is the first example of not only on-chain governance, but on-chain governance where the members of the governance set are actually constrained by an on-chain constitution. So there's programmatic guardrails that prevent Constitutional Committee members from doing stupid things, or at least as many as that can be plugged with a smart contract. So that's a super powerful construction. You have this free-floating liquid democracy with all this magic. You have this amazing gov tool that continues to evolve very rapidly. You have a great Constitutional Committee concept, and then you have all these things, and there's training that's happening on a pretty regular basis, teaching people how to do things. I still owe you guys a video about how to use a YubiKey and combine that with a FIPS compliant storage device. So we'll get that done here in a little bit. But yeah, we're firing on all cylinders. Everybody's a little tired, you know. Woke up early and jumped on a Black Hawk helicopter and flew down from Wyoming to Longmont. We back in the office, ready to go, and worked all weekend. Got it done. Lots of speeches, lots of hands to shake, and I can't wait to keep traveling. All right, well, that's all for me. Keep this one short and sweet. Thank you all for listening, and I'll keep you guys in the loop. Cheers.